Welcome in to the Adam Loewy Law Firm postgame show here on Orangebloods Live following Washington's 37-31 win over Texas in the Sugar Bowl in the CFP semifinals. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Jason Sucamel. My goodness, we've got a lot to talk about. The Longhorns lose a game by 6 where they were knocking on the doorstep at the end of the game. 4 plays from either the 12 or the 13-yard line to win the game. And they can't find a way to close the deal after getting close. Really, they didn't get close at all on either of those last 4 plays. Still a little mystified by the throw out to Jaden Blue on 1st and 10 from the 12. Strange play on that one. But at the end of the day, the bottom line doesn't change. In a game that I think Texas players, coaches, and fans will be haunted by throughout the offseason. The Longhorns didn't play well enough to beat Washington, but my God, they hung in there. A really tremendous season ends in real disappointment, knowing that if Texas just could have played a little bit better on either side of the ball, they'd be playing Michigan for a national championship right now. Jason, the defense wasn't good all night, and in the end, they were able to force a couple of non-scores for the Huskies. The Longhorns had, if I tell you probably before the game, hey, if Texas has the ball on Washington's 12-yard line with 4 attempts to win it in the final seconds of the game, you might like your odds of pulling that off. Strange game. Before they get the ball back, it feels like the kind of game where you really focus on a lot of the things that didn't happen. And I feel like now we're really going to focus on those last 4 throws to try to win the game. Your initial thoughts on 37-31 Washington?
Oh man, this one for Texas fan base is going to sting. My thoughts are like the way this thing unfolded. I mean, I had most of my column written like, oh, great season. You know, Texas just got beat by the better team. And then I start writing, holy crap, Texas is maybe going to win this game. So I start writing real quickly and changing my write-up up. And then those last 4 plays happen. So I'm trying to scramble and change things up again. Dude, what just a roller coaster finish. You know, if you had told me, yeah, Texas Quinn Ewers throws for 318 yards, Texas runs for 180 yards, I said, okay, Texas probably is going to win this game. But I mean, Washington actually outdoes it, and Washington goes for 532 yards to 498 for Texas. Just a frustrating loss for Texas, a disappointing loss. You know, a great season. You hate to see it end that way, and they were so close. I'll be honest, man. I mean, I think Washington was the better football team. I think they were the better football team for 53 minutes or whatever it was. But Washington made some really dumb mistakes there at the end to give Texas a chance. One wasn't necessarily a mistake. It was just terrible luck with their running back getting injured.
But you know what? That was a mistake because
all they
needed to be doing was taking a knee.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was thinking the same thing. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. I'm like, why not just take a knee? So you don't have to risk the fumble and then punt the ball away with whatever 15 seconds left. Yeah, you're right, Ketch. That was a mistake. It was a mistake in coaching, but it was also some bad luck. He gets injured. That saves Texas a lot of time. Then the punt interference, you know, it's a 15-yard penalty. Whittington comes up huge. You know, and like honestly, those last 4 plays happened so fast, dude. And I'm trying to write and I'm watching the TV as I'm writing. I almost need to go back and rewatch them to truly process them and dissect them. I don't have a problem with them going to Adonai Mitchell on that last play, even if he's covered. I don't give a shit. Throw it up there and let him go try to make a play on it. Like I need to go back and I'm looking over my shoulder to see if maybe they'll replay it. Was the ball placement just not great on that one and the one before it? I know it was not for sure. But on that last play, it looked like he got his hands on it to me. He just couldn't pull it in. But I want to see a replay of it so I can really dissect it. But just a frustrating night, dude. They were so close on a night where maybe they didn't necessarily deserve it. They were so damn close just to come up inches short.
Yeah, on the 1st down play, they throw the swing pass to Blue that loses a yard.
was silly. I don't understand. Yeah.
They came out of 2 timeouts with that as the play call. It was a bit mystifying. Second down, Ewers is forced to throw the ball out of the back of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Third down, he throws the Colt McCoy
Yes.
ball out of bounds.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, they're going to go to the video, and we're going to be watching frame by frame to see when it hits the turn.
Well, it was obvious that he got it out of bounds with 2 seconds to go, that there was at least a second left. So they didn't quite need to even go to the Nebraska-Texas 2009, but it was close. It was hard not to think of that.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if he airmails it like Colt did,
it
might have been that he hit the ball boy. It was like, okay, the ball boy caught it, and it was like almost 2 seconds to go. So I think things are good. And then on the last play of the game, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good throw. And he really didn't give Mitchell a great chance to catch the ball in bounds. I don't know if Mitchell had actually caught the ball if his feet would have been in bounds.
I thought he was on first blush, but again,
the thing is, he's trying to catch the ball low instead of going up to catch the ball high, which is what Mitchell would have wanted. He would have wanted a chance to highball the play, and it just wasn't thrown that way. Ultimately, the Washington defensive back swats it away out of his hands, so that none of it's a moot point anyway. And at the end of the day, it was such a good 45 seconds. It was the first 30 seconds of that drive was as good as you could pretty much do it, all the way down to the Jaden Blue catch. That was really, if they win the game, we'll be talking about that Jaden Blue catch forever. It's disappointing that 4 shots from what should have been the 12-yard line, and 3 of those plays end up being from the 13-yard line. That they really don't get a great opportunity. I mean, if you go back and watch that play, you can watch it 10 times. It wasn't what you'd hope your final opportunity would completely look like. Again, you'd like to have Mitchell leaping in that situation and it being a one-on-one battle. The way the trajectory of the pass came in, Mitchell became the small guy, and the defender ends up being the big guy. And in the end, the Longhorns lose. The end almost makes the first 59 minutes of this game a moot point.
A little bit, yeah.
Because Texas was second best for most of the night.
And sometimes a distant second. I mean, it's almost bewildering to me that they even had the chance to win that game. I mean, but especially after 2 fumbles. I mean, Washington had their muffed punts, but you're right. You put it pretty well that it almost the first 59 minutes almost don't matter with the way this thing ended, man. It's just I don't know, man. Bizarre finish, and Texas the fan base. This one's going to sting for a long time. The Texas fan base may have been easier to accept it if Washington just would have gone ahead and won by like 17 points, because then you can just say, you know what, Washington was clearly the better team, but boy, to be given that chance and just not being able to get over the hump, that's a bittersweet end to a really good season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, it feels like we could do 2 hours on the last 45, really the last minute 20 of that game. Chad and I are doing the watch along. By the way, just again, shout out to Adam Loewy and the Loewy Law Firm. I know I mentioned it earlier, but they are the sponsor of the Postgame show. If anybody ever injures you, hurts you, you need a personal injury lawyer to get you some money. Like that's what Adam Loewy does. Make sure you contact the Loewy Law Firm. Never forget they're there when you're in need. And hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, all those things. They fail the onside kick. And I'll tell you what else is interesting is that they ended up kicking the field goal. And if the idea was that you were going to kick the field goal and you needed 2 possessions anyway, you could make the case that they maybe should have kicked the field goal a little earlier and saved maybe a little bit more time. But I guess in the end, they had enough time. They run the onside kick, which is awful. Like, it doesn't go 10 yards. It wasn't kicked hard enough where there was a bounce on the ball. It just kind of squibbled its way to the defender. Washington was in a position where Texas has 2 timeouts. If they run 2 plays and take a knee, Texas uses their timeouts. And there's like, I don't know, there's like a minute. There should about, if you do the math, if they just take the knee 3 times, they're punting with about 25 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas should have been getting the ball inside its 20 or at the 20-yard line at best. And there's like 15, 20 seconds left on the clock. Instead, and I don't know if they were just trying to run the ball to get themselves in field goal range. Maybe.
Or maybe they just thought, hey, one first down, and then the game is officially.
Well, it was 3rd and 10 or whatever. It was 3rd and long. So, to run the ball there, the thing is, Texas's only chance was to create an impact play.
And you saw Sark being like, rip the ball out.
It's the only chance they had. I mean, I was saying in the watch along, bring 11. Like, you literally have to cause something that disrupts the game. They didn't do that. But Johnson gets hurt. And it forces, because they're under 2 minutes, they're inside of a minute. Washington has to use a timeout there. So instead of running the ball down to 20 seconds, the clock stops. Texas gets the ball back with 45 seconds. You mentioned it. There's the punter interference, the return interference, which was a legit call. Mm-hmm. One of the only penalties called all night on Washington. They throw it down. They hit Whittington. They hit Blue. And with 15 seconds to go, you've got 4 throws from the 12-yard line. And in the end, maybe they needed to be further back. Like, I don't know. Like they did that thing where they got into the red zone in the passing game, kind of once Texas all year long, we know it's been a conversation point. They actually done a really good job in the red zone in running the ball today. They really hadn't been able to do it a lot in the passing game. It's going to haunt Texas fans because they're going to look at that and say, we're 1 play away and we're 12 yards away from winning the game on a night when we really weren't good. Quinn had one of his worst games of the season. He plays pretty well in the second half, but most of that was with Texas trailing by double digits and Washington playing a little bit off. Jason, I'll get to your super chat here in a second. They're going to say we fumbled the ball twice with our running backs. We didn't cover anybody all night. We let Michael Penix have the best game of his season. There was really I thought Sarkisian and the coaches were awful. And yet in the end, they're throwing the ball into the end zone the last play of the game, and not from midfield, from the 13-yard line, not able to cash in. It becomes a really strange game, Jason, because Texas could have won it. And I think Texas fans will look back on the plays inside at the end of that game, the last 4 throws, and they'll look at the overall tone of the game and say, God, we played a C- game. Mm-hmm. If we play a B- game, we're probably playing in the national championship game against Michigan. In the end, they lose 37-31 with a C- game. And just one play here or there. I'll tell you what, one of the plays, I don't want to do that thing where I blame the officials. But before Washington gets a field goal to make it 9, it's 1st and 10 from their own 20. They lose a yard, and there's a clear push in the back. It's either a
block. Oh my God. And they threw the flag. Yeah.
It's either a block in the back or it's a late hit. So it's either 1st and 20 from the 9, or it's 1st and 2nd and 20. If they call, it's either one of the two. It's either a block in the back or a late hit. They throw the flag. They pick the flag up. Again, on a night where when you lose on the final play of the game, you think about a lot of things it could have been. And that was a weird one. That
I'm not sure Washington wouldn't have converted anyways, though, man.
They could have.
The way Penix was playing.
So. In the end, That probably should have been 2nd and 26. And they picked up the flag. And it was just
if
one of
they
those
never
things.
had thrown the flag, it would, because it was wide open. There was no traffic around them. If they would have not thrown the flag, I would have been like, that's a terrible non-call. The fact that they threw the flag and then picked it up was bullshit. And I'm not one that likes to blame.
Again, it's not the reason why Texas lost the game, but I'm pointing out on a night where Texas didn't play well. There's a lot of if woulda, coulda, shouldas, ifs and buts, and like my uncle would be my aunt, those kinds of things. But even like a play like that, you think to yourself, if that one thing happens, maybe things are a little bit different. Washington fans would say, look, we were up by double digits. You scored under 2 minutes to close it to single digits. And the only thing that even made that end game scenario possible was a fluke injury to our running back, who, oh, by the way, got carted off the field.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder about his availability going into next week against Michigan. They didn't need that. They didn't. They just needed to kneel the ball down. And Texas doesn't have enough time to really do any of that. I think Texas fans are going to focus, Jason, on that last minute. I don't know if that's the right thing to focus on, but by the way, my voice after 5 hours is completely gone. But whatever you choose, I guess, to focus on is whatever you choose to focus on. It really was a tale of 2 games because Texas was chasing all night long. They're down 7-0. They make it 7-7. They're down 14-7. They make it 14-14. They're down 21-14 with the prospect, if they don't score, Washington gets the ball to open the second half. And you wonder, oh God, is it going to be 28-14? Is it going to be 24-14? But is it going to be a 2-score game before we even get the ball back? But Texas scores. They make it 21-21. And then Washington dominates the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Dominates. They win that quarter 10-0, but then they make it 13-0 like by within a minute into the
9 seconds into the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So then it's 13-0, and Texas doesn't allow them into the end zone again for the rest of the night. But Texas just couldn't quite get over the hump. The Jaden Blue fumble is a killer. I mean,
yeah, untouchable.
He fumbles the ball off of Gunnar Helm's ass.
Yeah.
So, Jason, I guess I'll ask you. Jason, I'm still going to get to the super chats here in a second. And we'll knock out some of those.
In real quick catch, things are just popping into my head. Like, where was the intensity we saw when Texas went down by I guess it would have been 34-21, right? That's almost when you kind of expected the Texas defense would just cave. And then all of a sudden they pick up their intensity. Like, where had that been all year?
I thought the Texas offense didn't go quick tempo enough.
I thought so too. Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, what got them, I thought, the best of passing offenses looked all day has been when they went hurry up at the end of the second quarter.
You did it some on the first drive and then barely did it until the fourth quarter again. Yeah.
So what do you think? Where should a Texas fan's focus be tonight? First 59 minutes or the last minute?
Well, listen, if you're a realist, you understand Washington was the better team and they made a couple of mistakes to give Texas a chance to really steal victory from the jaws of defeat, right? I think if you're objective, that's probably what you're looking at. But listen, man, if you're a fan who just bleeds, you're probably only going to be thinking about those last 4 plays. Nothing else, everything else you can just kind of sweep under the rug. It's those last 4 plays with a chance to win, or what people are going to remember, or that's what people are going to lay their head down tonight thinking about. Just how close that they were and just weren't able to pull it off. The first 53 minutes of the game. Quinn Ewers wasn't very good, and like you said, Texas was playing catch up all game, but Washington just let them keep hanging around. I said at halftime, I thought Texas was really fortunate to be hanging around at halftime and be tied up. It felt like Texas should be down by 10 points or something at halftime. But here it's 21-21. Washington keeps pushing it to 2 scores. with a few minutes left in the game, and yet Texas still has a chance to win the game at the end. I think that's what fans are going to be thinking about. I mean, that's what I'm thinking about. And, I try to be as objective as I can, but those last few minutes, the way those unfolded, to me, just kind of take precedent over everything else.
Let's knock out some super chats, and we encourage them. Thanks for the super chats. Jason for $20 says, in the end, Sark's shitty red zone offense reared its ugly head. His play calling the last 2 drives was atrocious, and to be honest, he was bad all night. Well, I don't think the play calling was bad on the last drive until they got into the red zone. I mean,
yeah, they had deep ball to Whittington was, first it was a great catch by Jay Witt, but what else do you want him to do? I mean, no, I don't think the play calling was bad. I mean, you can quit, and I've been watching, they've been replaying that last play. You're right, that ball was not placed well to Adonai Mitchell, but there were a couple, curious calls on those last 4, but I thought the play calling overall, I thought was okay. I mean,
I thought the play calling for the game was shitty. I thought this was a really bad night for Sark. That I still don't know what. I don't know what the game plan was.
I don't know, but they put up 500 yards of offense. I mean, to me, it was more about Texas.
That is chasing. Here's what I know. At the end of 3 quarters, Xavier Worthy was irrelevant.
Yeah.
Adonai Mitchell had caught 1 pass for 5 yards. It started like this. Off of the Sark script, right? Which is where Sark's at his best. The first quarter ends, and Sanders doesn't have a target. Mitchell doesn't have a catch, and Worthy's got 1 catch for 7 yards. It stayed that way until pretty much the end of the first quarter or second quarter, where at halftime, Sanders has 3 for 19. Mitchell has 1 for 5, and Worthy has 1 for 7.
No. At halftime, Worthy and Adonai had a total of 1 catch for 7 yards.
Okay, so Mitchell hadn't even caught a pass yet.
No, not until after halftime.
Sark's play calling was really good at the end of the first half, and at the end of the game when with 45 seconds they had to do something. Now they get, I guess, from 45 for 30 seconds, it was really good. And then they got to the 15, and I don't quite know what all that was. I thought Sark was bad tonight. I thought he goes right into the pile of, like you said, you get to halftime and your best 2 players, Mitchell and Worthy, 2 guys who are being talked about as first-round draft picks, have combined for 1 catch. And they haven't gone out of their way to give Quinn some easy catches, nothing in space for Worthy. Nothing, just,
I thought maybe it was Worthy's health, but the couple times they threw it to him, he didn't seem to have any issues, right? I mean,
well, I think he didn't get open tonight. Worthy didn't play a great game, and I don't know what that was, but he wasn't getting separation. They weren't.
That was just good coverage by Muhammad too.
I give that guy, give them. It's not always bad play. Sometimes you got to give the other guys credit for playing well. I thought Washington played better, but I thought on a night before that last minute, in the first 59 minutes of the game, it was one of those nights where I didn't think the coaching staff, any of them, covered themselves in glory. I don't know what Kwiatkowski – when your players aren't making plays, it's hard to say that defensively that you can coach. I don't know. It just wasn't working.
I don't know what Kwiatkowski could have done differently, man. When Penix is on like he was tonight, I just don't know what you can do to stop him.
You got to do something. And I tell you what, in the fourth quarter, they started bringing a little extra pressure. They tried to really – in the first half, they didn't blitz very much at all. They tried to get pressure with 4, and Penix was literally rewriting the record book. And I think it was an awful approach by Kwiatkowski, because the data, and I wrote about this and I talked about it for a month. In the last 9 weeks of the season, Michael Penix was a bad football player when blitzed. And Texas didn't do a lot of blitzing. They weren't able to get Penix off schedule very much. They couldn't cover the receivers. Ryan Watts was awful tonight. Terrence Brooks was awful tonight. I thought Jahdae Barron was good against McMillan in the slot. The safeties, I don't know. Did they play? I don't know. What I did know, I remember Jaron Thompson early in the game,
First play
on Jalen Polk at the 30-yard line and letting him gain 30 extra yards after a gain of 45. There wasn't a lot there. Caden says DBs got cooked, D-line got cooked, O-line got cooked so bad.
That was surprising to me. I thought Washington and Texas ran the ball for 180 yards. So they ran the ball well, but I thought Washington, in terms of controlling the line of scrimmage when Texas threw the ball, Trice was fantastic. Braylon Trice. I mean, I'm trying to look. He finished with 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hurry, 1.
He was great. He was the best defensive lineman on the field tonight. He made difference-making plays. And it should be noted that of Texas's 4 plays in that final 15 seconds, 2 of the 4 get thrown off schedule because of pressure from the Washington defensive line. The second down play where he throws the ball out of the end zone is because he's being pressured and there wasn't anything open, and he just lives to fight another day. The third down play, he's got to throw the ball out of bounds because he's being pressured. So, the offensive line didn't come through there in the final 15 seconds of the game. Ewers needed a little bit of time to find somebody, and they really didn't give him that. And kudos to the Washington defensive line. At the end of the day, to the victor go the spoils, and they were, when it mattered, a little bit better.
Yeah. Murphy and Sweat, I wrote about this in my column, combined for 2 solo tackles. I mean, they made sporadic plays. You saw Murphy kind of get in the backfield, a little bit here and there. But they just, I thought those 2 guys needed to dominate the interior of the Washington offensive line and collapse that pocket in order for Texas to have a chance to slow Penix down, and it just didn't happen. And as you said,
not they as in those 2 guys, but
they would have been a big part of it. But yeah,
Texas got close to Penix a half dozen times tonight, and they never got him.
And when they did, he was able to a couple times still step up into the pocket.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
nice play.
There were about a half dozen plays. One of them was Murphy early in the game where he's got a dead. He looks like he's about to sack Penix. And Penix just kind of slides to the right. Yeah. And there were about a half dozen plays. Ethan Burke had a couple where, boy, he's right there on the cusp of getting their hands on him and bringing him to the ground, and they just never could. And it felt like every single time they almost got him, not only did they not get him, but then he would make a play, and sometimes it was like an 8-yard throw, and it's like, okay, well, now instead of 2nd and 16, it's 2nd and 2. Like, Penix was great tonight. Michael Penix was 2nd in the Heisman voting. So from a Heisman voting standpoint, he was the 2nd best player in America this year. And tonight he played like that, like Texas.
When he plays like he does tonight, man, I mean, Michigan won't beat him if he
You and I have been on Penix for so long that we've watched him play so many times that this was honestly the Michael Penix of 2022.
And early 2023, yeah.
He's slinging it all over in a way that he really didn't do a lot this season. As a matter of fact, real quick, how many balls, his sweet spot throwing the ball and wins all year long this year, between 35 and 40.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight he finishes with 38 pass attempts. But he throws for 430. He was so much more efficient. 76% completion percentage. It's his best game of the season in the biggest moment. Caden says last 4 play calls, Sark was too worried about riding with the momentum rather than taking a calculated shot into the end zone. Just made it sting even more. I don't know what Sark was worried about. Again, 2 of those plays go off schedule because of pressure from the defensive line from Washington. The thing that's frustrating, Caden, is that on none of those 4 plays did the ball go into the end zone where it felt like the Texas receiver had a real chance to make a play. The last play of the game is the closest they got, and it wasn't Mitchell in a high point situation. It was him trying to make a play alongside the sideline, and it just wasn't a great ball. And that was as good as it got. And where Caden's right, I think you almost just have to reinvent in your brain the story of the game, because most of that second half, it felt like the scene in Saving Private Ryan where the big German is about to kill Adam Goldberg, and Goldberg puts up a good fight and they tussle, but eventually the big guy gets on top of him and he just drives the knife into his chest. And you're like, oh, well, big guy wins. And like, it felt like the big guy was Washington and the little guy was Texas. And it felt like,
one of your few movie references I actually know, because I've watched that movie. Usually I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I love that on the last night of the season, I give you a movie reference that hits home. And, you know, it felt like, well, Washington's been the better team for a while in the second half. It really did feel like they were just pushing the knife into the Texas chest. But then
this is so random, catch, but like, what did you think of the decision in the second half to put
Keelan Robinson on
yes, thank you. Keelan Robinson back there on kick returns? First off, Jaden Blue was doing well, and he muffs both of them, right? Like, what?
At one point, he's trying to pick the ball up off the ground with his non-broken hand, and it's like, ah!
I mean, I'm like, what in the, like,
I think they panicked a little bit.
Why though? I mean, Jaden Blue was. I mean, yeah, he didn't have a 70-yarder.
You know, look, Keelan Robinson's one of the better special teams players in America. I look, Jason, I'm not defending it because Chad and I talked about it in real time, and we were absolutely mystified. Because I don't understand him being good enough to go in the third quarter, but not in the first. Nothing. What changed where you felt like you couldn't play him? And again, Jaden Blue does a good job on kickoff returns. So
Blue averaged on 3 returns 27 yards. Keelan Robinson averaged on 3 returns 13 yards.
No, it was a bad decision. It didn't work. And
then why wasn't Worthy back on the punt which ended up working out fine because Whittington makes the catch and you get the catch interference. But I just thought that was curious because Worthy clearly was healthy because he came back in, as a receiver. I don't know.
I don't know.
Weird special teams.
It was a weird game for Texas all night long. And I can't believe that somehow we've walked out of this and the talking point isn't going to be they got their ass kicked by a better team. It's going to be that they had a chance to win it in the final seconds and couldn't. Boy, I don't know if like in 2 months that makes you feel better or not. The dialogue on this game is, hey, we're knocking on the door and we were almost there and we had a chance to win it. If they played that game 10 times, Washington wins it 8 or 9 based on what happened tonight, maybe even 9. And we almost saw the 10%er come through. I don't know. It was such a, again, it's one of the weirder games that we will have talked about in a post-game setting because of how it ends. Tim says, check out the last play of the game from a different view. Look at a tweet tagged by Ketchum, Sukamel, and Onwar. I tell you what, I'll try, but I got to believe my mentions are crazy. I'm looking at it, Tim. I thought the defensive guy made a great play. He leaps. He leaps higher than Mitchell, who's on his way down.
Yeah,
well down.
I'm seeing that too. Yeah, that's a still capture. That doesn't really tell. The ball just wasn't placed very well. And Mitchell's feet are on the ground right there. I mean, you want Mitchell. You want
Mitchell where he is.
Yeah, that guy's 2 feet off the ground or a foot and a half off the ground. That's where you want Mitchell jumping off the ground like that. Yeah,
you want that guy's shorter than Mitchell, and where you want how you want that play to be executed is that the ball is thrown inside. And that Mitchell's got a one-on-one chance to out-rebound that guy and snag it over his head. And in the end, it's thrown at an angle that, Mitchell, if there's no DB there, I mean, are you still looking at that ball, Jason?
Yeah.
If he's able to get his hands on that ball and bring it in, maybe he catches it. It's not crystal clear to me.
That's a good play by the Washington defender, but the placement of the ball made it kind of easy, right?
I don't think it's pass interference, Tim. At the end of the day, I think the DB's has every right to go for the ball, and that's what he's doing. And
he's got his arm on his shoulder.
And I got to let that go. I mean, he's not restricting Mitchell.
Yeah.
That's just where his hand is. If I felt like Mitchell's arm got grabbed, that would be one thing. He bats the ball away. It's just a good play. It's a good play by the defense. I mean, It sucks, Tim, but I didn't see anything there that makes me change the way I view that play. James says, this one hurt. I feel bad about the way Quinn played at the end. Led me to win $500 with my prize picks.
Yeah, well, I didn't win $500, James, but that last drive and that pass to Whittington, because I had Quinn and Penix both on the more, so I was like, oh, that's sweet. I just won prize picks. So
in the end, James, I lost. I finished. I'm going to end up winning a few $100s, but honestly, my wins will cancel out the amount of money that I bet. But I had Adonai Mitchell I had him over 60 on almost every play that I had, and he caught 4 passes for 32 yards. And I don't know what to say. Ultimately, I didn't lose my ass on prize picks like I thought, partly because of the play that you're talking about. The Quinn throw to Whittington puts him over the yardage mark, and I had a little bit of something going there, but I missed on 5 of 6 on a couple, and on both I missed out on $1,500 because I had Jalen McMillan on the over, the more, and he didn't really come close. I think he was 20 yards away. But anyway, it still hurt my feelings. Arthur says, 2 L's this year were C- or worse games and still almost won. Coincidentally, 2 losses versus the best quarterbacks Texas saw all year. Need to keep stacking personnel and upgrade DBs. Much love from the ATL, y'all. Nothing wrong with that super chat, Jason. He's not wrong on any of it.
And they got a whole plethora of DBs coming in, starting. Some will be there in a couple weeks. So
there wasn't one guy in that defensive backfield tonight that I would have on the field next year. Other than I thought Jahdae Barron played well.
Yeah, but he won't be there. But yeah,
Ryan Watts was abysmal at corner.
Who are you going to replace Muhammad with?
Well, I would have Muhammad on the field. I know he played a little bit, but it was a Brooks and Ryan Watts game. And those guys were abysmal tonight. I mean, abysmal. And, the safety play, again, I think Barron played well. And I think Derek Williams coming in the second half, he wasn't awful. But like Jaron Thompson, it's time for Thompson to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
you and I both, before the season, we both thought Terrence Brooks was in for a big year, right? And I don't want to just beat on one guy, but like,
I'm not gonna, yeah. But
he did not have the kind of season, that we expected him to. No, and not even close.
I thought he would develop into one of the best corners in the Big 12.
I think he regressed from where he was last year. Yeah.
Well, he regressed in this game because last year in this game he played really well and helped limit Adunze, right? Like, and tonight he's just not good enough. So I think Texas could have used Andrew Makuba tonight. He's a player. They needed like at least one more good player in the secondary and it wasn't there. David says, don't want to hear Texas called DBU ever again.
It's fair. Not for a while.
It's not unfair, but it's harsh. It's like saying, don't ever call Texas running back you again because of the fumbles by Baxter and Blue. I don't know that we can wipe out. First of all, you can't call Texas DBU because they haven't really produced a bunch of badass first-round draft picks in a long time. I mean, they produced some NFL guys, but, it's been a while since the heyday of Dwayne Akina and guys every year rolling out first and second and third round picks. But yeah, no, what you said, It's not unfair, just harsh. And look, I'm gonna again, David. Texas got to produce some guys before they can go back to the DBU thing again. It's been too long. Texas TV says, at the end of the day, damn proud of the young men in our program. The season we just had and the way we left the Big 12 future looks bright. Texas TV, again, nothing wrong with that message. I think, it's hard, guys. Here's the thing. Don't be upset at Texas fans tonight that can't see the forest through the trees. Let them losing a playoff game on the last play of the game. That's hard, man. That's harsh. It's harsh.
But like my random thoughts on the game that I posted on Orangebloods, my last one was incredibly disappointing end. But boy, the way Texas is stacking talent with recruiting classes, this was a great season. They're going to be in the college football playoff really probably more years than not, the way this thing is trending.
But they'll have to win to get to the point they were at tonight. Would mean winning 3 times if they're not among the top 4 seeds.
Yeah.
So I think the thing I was thinking before it comes down to the final minute, when I just thought the game was over, I thought, man, this could be as close as Texas gets. We don't know. Like there's nothing at best. You'll have to win a playoff game with a bye week to get to this moment again. So getting to the Final Four and being within a 12 or 13-yard completion away from the national championship game, it's hard to do. But I agree with everything that Texas TV is saying. The program, the trajectory of the program is up. You got a lot of guys coming back. You would assume, Quinn Ewers has to come back. He ain't going pro after tonight. But it's a new team next year. And, I think you look at the basketball program, right? It's apples to oranges. It's not the same thing, but they're knocking on the door of a Final Four a year ago. And you think, well, okay, Rodney Terry's a great recruiter, and he had a great offseason, and he brings in a bunch of transfers. And this team doesn't look at the moment like it's headed for that kind of season, although you had hopes. Again, not apples to oranges. I'm just pointing out it's tough to recreate magic, to recreate 12-1 and go and making the playoff the way that Texas did. Things will be different next year. They're in the SEC. I don't have to tell you guys that. But, let guys have a night tonight. If you see some unreasonable thoughts, if you see some people making some comments that are a little too much, let them wake up tomorrow. Look, first of all, it's 12:40 a.m. Those of you that are with us right now, you guys have been drinking a little bit.
The right idea was it to start this damn game at 8 o'clock, by the way. Come on,
hey, when this thing's over, I got to write a column still.
Yeah, I'll be sleeping in tomorrow, so you won't be seeing me on Orangebloods at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So
it's just this was a rough way to lose. No matter how they were about to lose, it was rough. There's no way to lose in a game like this. I tell you what, Alabama kind of going through the same thing. It comes down to a play, and you don't make the play. Mm-hmm. And when you don't, and your season ends like that, not on a kneel, not on a clock expiring, but on just not being able to make a play when you're so close. I've actually been kind of impressed. The chat was really grim in the fourth quarter when Texas wasn't going to win the game. They weren't playing well. Nothing was really happening on either side of the ball. And people were like, God, you guys are being negative. And it's like, well, there's nothing really this was a game that Texas could have easily lost by 2 scores. And in the end, they'd lose by 6 and are on the doorstep of winning the game. Again, it's so weird. I really don't know of, is there a game that you can immediately think of, Jason, that is like this? Am I missing something? Is it the national championship games when Texas and Alabama, where Gilbert's got the ball with 2 minutes to go, and all they got to do is kind of do what they've been doing for the previous? I don't know. I'm trying to think of a game where Texas really
Texas OU this year.
What's that?
Texas OU this year.
Maybe, but Texas in that game takes the lead and then gives. It's not quite the same.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Knocking on the door and almost winning. I don't know. It's got a little bit of Texas Tech vibes, 2008. Not the way that the game ends, but kind of similar to what you just mentioned, the OU game, where you're playing like a B-, C+, C- game. And the next thing you know, there's 2 minutes to go in the game and you're in it. And maybe should have won it. Although I don't know that we can completely say that. Can't quite go so far as to say Texas should have won. But you can definitely say Texas could have won. And it's kind of, again, just strange the way this season ends. By the way, we are waiting for Anwar Richardson in the postgame at DKR. Curious to see.
Not DKR,
but excuse me, at the Sugar Bowl. Kind of thought we would have seen him already because I can imagine Sark would come out pretty early after that. We'll see. We're expecting him. Blake says 5 more minutes and Anwar will join us, and then Jason can go to bed. BT, a.k.a. Pet Rooster, says Blake Gideon is suspect. We need to evaluate other options at DB coach.
He's recruited pretty well. I mean, I don't know that it was his fault necessarily tonight. I mean, the one that stands out is that first play, right? Because Crawford gets beat and Thompson misses that tackle doing a Olay and then just kind of watches the guy take off. I don't know that it was just necessarily the safety play.
I think Witkowski's got to take a role in that. Yeah. I mean, again, this team had
some of those were just great balls by Penix too. There were times when Texas had pretty tight coverage and he just dropped the ball in beautifully. I mean, sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the other side, man. I mean,
yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Jason, but sometimes you have to make a play.
Yeah.
And I thought what Washington got a little cute play calling. Boy, they just had Texas so far off balance, and it felt like
what about they drive down in Penix is just white hot. He's just carving Texas up. And then they run the ball 3 times in a row and end up kicking a field goal. I'm like, what the hell? Like, if that was Sark, we would be dogging him. Like, what? You're taking the ball out of your best player's hand who's having one of his best games of his career. And you're going to run the ball 3 times against one of the country's best rush defense, and then you end up settling for a field goal. It's just dumb. I mean, Washington did some things that really helped keep Texas in this game. I mean, I thought Washington played if Texas played a C-level game, Washington was probably a B+ level game, but they just made enough stupid mistakes and stupid decisions that really kept Texas in it.
I thought the Washington coaches ran circles around the Texas coaches in the first half. Offense, defense, I wasn't impressed with Sark. I wasn't impressed with Kwiatkowski. But in the end, DeBoer's final 5 minutes, and look, but the Dylan Johnson injury is his fault. Or, he's not specifically calling plays, obviously, on offense, but he's the head coach. Yeah. He's got the ability to override and say, whoa, what are we doing? Let's talk for a second. I get on Texas coaches all the time about managing the final 2 minutes of halves and the end-game sequences. And you can't say it's Monday morning quarterback, I guess Tuesday a.m. quarterbacking, to say, oh, now you're calling it out. Like, no, in real time, on the very first down play where they ran the ball on 1st and 10 when I thought they just line up in victory formation, Texas calls 2 timeouts. They snap the ball again. They run, the play takes 3, 4, 5 seconds. Then it gets to 40. And then by the time it's run all the way down, there's like 15, 20 seconds to go in the game. you punt, then there's 10 seconds to go, and Texas doesn't have enough time to do anything. They got that time on the clock because the Washington coaches, completely botched the in-game sequence with regards to what do we ultimately need to accomplish here. What has to happen is that we don't turn the ball over, right, Jason? I mean,
that's what I was. I mean, you're not thinking about your player getting injured, but to me, I'm thinking you're risking a turnover here by running the ball 3 times.
2 things. Yeah. But Texas is out of timeouts. There's only a penalty and an injury and a turnover. There's 3 things that can happen on 3rd down that you can't allow to happen. You can't commit a penalty to stop the clock. You can't have an injury to stop a clock, and you can't have a turnover. And the only way that 2 of the 3 things could happen, well, really 3 out of 3, was to give Texas an opportunity to A, try to force a fumble, B, run a play where an injury can actually occur, along with a potential penalty. You know what doesn't happen when you take a knee in victory formation?
None of those 3 things.
None of those 3. Yeah. So, as much as I thought DeBoer did a really good job in this game of getting his team prepared, I thought the offense was better than the Texas defense. I thought the Washington defense for so much of that game was better than really the Texas offense, but certainly the passing offense. And again, I don't know creatively what Sark was doing, because at halftime, the guys that he was trying to throw the ball to at the end of the game, he didn't try to throw the ball to at all in the first half. Strange.
Speaking of Washington's defense had 8 pass breakups, and I got to think like 6 or 7 of those were batted balls at the line, right? Probably 5 or 6. By comparison, Texas had 1 pass breakup. Texas had 0 quarterback hurries. Washington had 3. Washington 2 sacks. Texas 0. So, the Washington defense, people kind of goofed on their defense, and I think it's a much better defense than people realize. And you kind of saw it tonight. Like, you're like, well, wait a second. They give up a shit ton of yards. Well, yeah, because teams are doing what Texas was having to do tonight and play from behind and, get some quote unquote junk yards. But that's not a bad defense at Washington Fields. They've certainly outplayed the Texas defense tonight.
Caden says, honest opinion on DBs not playing the ball in the air for what seems like 8+ seasons now and multiple DB coaches. We could have played the ball a bit.
Again, man, I mean, yes, you would like them to turn their head and, make a play, get their arm up, but some of those passes by Penix were seriously perfect balls. I just don't know that.
Who's the best corner that Texas has had in the last 8+ years?
8 years? That's sad that nobody pops into my head, right?
Well, they don't have any first-round draft picks.
Most
of their recent draft picks at DB, Stearns is a safety, Brandon Jones is a safety.
Yeah, I can't even think of
Deshaun Elliott is a safety.
Chris Boyd.
Chris Boyd, but that's going back to the Charlie years. Boyd was in the 2015 class. So his class,
Holton Hill.
We're going back half a decade.
And even those
bottom line is we had the super chat come in earlier about, I don't want to hear about DBU in a while. I think one of the reasons why you're not seeing the corners anyway, Texas hasn't had a real good corner in a while. And will they in the future? It looks like it. Like, they're recruiting at a level. You think Malik Muhammad's going to be that kind of a guy. We thought Terrence Brooks was going to be that kind of a guy, but they haven't had a plus player, a first-team all-conference corner-level player defending balls and knocking balls down and being more offensive than you are defensive. It's been a while, and I think personnel is part of the problem there, Caden, for me. A few more super chats. They keep coming in. $9.99 from Rick. Tired of hearing this is on the defense. Everybody expected Washington to score. This came down to critical turnovers and poor execution, a month to prepare, and that was our first drive?
That first drive, Texas was just out of sorts, right? I'm trying to think if they had a penalty, I think, and a couple batted balls. Yours was inaccurate. I put that in my notes, I think. It's just that they just, sometimes you see that, though.
In big games, quarterbacks come out
Yeah,
throw the
and you have
ball
a month
high.
to prepare, but yeah, a month teams also get rusty. We kind of, you see that quite a bit too. So
I thought the play was to defer, which is what Washington did. I think for either team, I think it's funny because I was listening to Washington guys on YouTube say, hey, no matter who you are, this feels like the kind of game where you take the ball and try to score first. And I thought, for me, this is the kind of game where I defer, and I try to see if on the opening drive of the game, the offense comes out a little too geeked up, quarterback's throwing the ball high, not accurate. To Washington's credit, what they did different than Texas, they come out in the very first play, they give Penix an easy toss. An easy toss, if I'm not mistaken, it was to maybe the tight end out of the flat, and it only picked up about 8 yards. But it was, let's get our quarterback into a rhythm. And Texas didn't do that for Quinn. And I thought that's one of the things, really going back to last year and not this year, that it would irk me with Sarkisian, was that I didn't feel like we saw enough easy plays to get Quinn Ewers into a rhythm. Just little pick and pops, these little cheap passes that count as passes, but they really aren't. And you get your athletes a chance to get into space. You see the Cowboys do it with CeeDee Lamb all the time. It's just something their quarterback doesn't even have to try to complete a pass.
if you look at Texas's first drive, first off, they have the illegal snap on Jake Majors, right? The first play of the game. And then it's 1st and 15, incomplete, broken up. 2nd and 15, CJ Baxter rushes for 16. And then they go throw, and it's incomplete, broken up again, incomplete, punt. And you're right, Washington's first play was a 5-yard pass, and they run the ball twice to move the chain.
They hit Polk on the big one.
And then it's 1st and 10, and then it's Polk for the 77-yard. Yeah.
Jess says, appreciate the coverage all season, guys. This one stings, and I have to be 8-hour drive. Dude, I feel you. I've made that drive. Stay safe, Jess. And I've made that drive following the Sugar Bowl loss to Virginia Tech back in the day. It sucks. I'm not going to tell you that drive's going to be fun or remotely fun, but it is what it is. Anwar says he's only got 30 minutes if y'all still want me on. Yeah, no, Anwar, come on in. We may not go for 30 more minutes because we're all tired and it's 1 a.m., but we definitely want to hear from you. Give us a couple things. One, obviously, Stark just finished up talking to the media after the game, so paint the picture for us in the post game, and then just give us some general thoughts.
Well, first of all, hello, Happy New Year to you and Jason.
Hey, what's up, champ, by the way?
And yes, the champ is here as well, or the champs are here as well. I think for Sark, I think one of the things that, obviously you can tell that they were, upset, a little bit downtrodden, obviously about the loss. So, those natural emotions are kind of to be expected. But, I think he did try to paint a little bit of a positive picture. He tried to talk about their resiliency as a team, that, hey, they were able to fight back and get back into this thing as poorly as they've played, and feeling like, hey, at the end of the day, they were, within one play of potentially being in the playoffs the national championship game, as bad as they played. So I think he tried to, paint that thing, and it's like that's how they've been all year long. He started, referred to that, the culture, he's really big on culture and talking about that, right? So I think that was one of the things that he discussed. It's interesting, the question, of course, of the Penix and getting pressure on him came about from Sarkisian's perspective. He felt like they did get pressure on him. Just felt like Penix was either able to move around the pocket and avoid the pressure that they did have, or B, he said he was elusive, able to move around the pocket, and he felt like overall they did a good job of applying it. Oh, in fact, that was the second thing. B would be they just weren't able to bring him down to the ground. So he felt like the pressure was there.
They didn't have a single quarterback hit all game.
he felt like the pressure was
Quarterback
there.
rather, yeah.
He said he felt like the pressure was there, but but shoot the
Things you
messenger.
tell yourself on where to sleep at night.
Yes. It's like anything you do. So I think from that perspective, he was there. I do feel like he was asked about Quinn. He felt like Quinn in the passes that were there, especially that last, obviously those last couple of plays, right? He felt like Washington did a good job of defending it, but he felt like he talked about the positives of Quinn getting the ball out with a chance in space, and then just talked about the difficulty of making those end zone throws, So overall, I don't think he said anything really negative about Quinn. Now, to his defense, Quinn was sitting right next to him. So, maybe there might have been more of a critique if he didn't have his quarterback literally sitting on the same podium with him, along with Jalen Ford. I'll try to go through it, some of the other things that we went through. Penix, I already talked about that. And then so I'm just going through a little bit more. He did talk about he felt like the time off over the last 30 days may have affected their rhythm. He felt like guys were a little bit jittery on the offensive line, that he felt like that was a little uncharacteristic as far as some of those penalties that they were picking up. And then overall, I think he kind of paints like a good picture of where they'll be kind of going forward, building on this thing that they have there. He said one of the things that he talked about was that they'll have to restart all over, building the foundation of their team again. Says that's a yearly thing. So he says that that goes back to starting from scratch with the winter conditioning, spring ball, summer workouts, the training camp, the culture Wednesdays, all those kind of things, community classroom. So he just said like they'll have to redo that again in order to try to get back to this spot. As far as and I think it was only 15 minutes. You also have some players that answered some questions within that 15-minute time span. So, I mean, that's kind of the extent of it. And I think for me, it's just kind of an overall perspective. So, I agree with you. The pass rush wasn't there as much as you would like it to be, as effective as you guys would like, you want it to be. And for a Washington team that kind of felt like, hey, we can handle those guys. I won't say they necessarily handled them, but it wasn't necessarily that defensive line, and not so much from the interior, but the edge guys. I mean, we're pretty much non-existent in my opinion. Those guys. You felt Ethan Burke every once in a while, but there really wasn't a lot of pressure there. I thought the mistakes were just. I mean, there's certain things like, the Jaden Blue fumble. I'm sure you guys have already talked about that. That's where they were moving the ball. You can kind of sense some momentum that was going there. And then that thing happens. It's just, like I said, it was just a lot of little things from my perspective, Catch, that kind of added up. Quinn definitely could have played better. I'm sure you guys have talked about that. The numbers look, the yard numbers look good at the end, but I think what did his QBR end up being, Catch?
125.6.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was in the 80s, I think, in the first half, if I'm correct. So, that's just that slow start, by him, and completing 56% of your passes. You got to have something. I think, Jason, I think you and I talked about it on one of the many shows, is that Quinn's going to have to be able to match Penix. And I mean, Penix played on a different world, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's hard to match what he did, but you've got to be able to keep pace. And Penix, you just couldn't keep pace with what that guy did. That guy looked like a franchise quarterback. When we start talking about first-round picks and all that kind of, that's what he looked like. Those receivers won one-on-one battles. Was it like, what it was? He just threw it up there for them to make plays, and those guys freaking made plays all night long. So, but then, at the end of the day, I think it'll be one of these things, Catch, that we'll look at and say, it's 12-2. They went to the playoffs. We'll nitpick the loss, and then in the offseason, we'll get back on the horse and say, you know what, close loss to Oklahoma, very close loss to, this team here, and, feel good about at least yourself going forward.
Anwar, one of the things that we've talked about, and guys, we'll take a few more. Jason, do you want to get out of here?
Yeah, I'll shut it down.
It's 1 a.m. You put in an hour, knock it out.
Are you doing your show tomorrow, or is that no good?
Hell no. Are you kidding me? No.
I don't need to worry about being on your show tomorrow. Good, okay.
No, you're good. You're good. I got to get at some point. I got to get back to Austin. So
All
no.
Right. Sounds good. All right, you guys have safe travels home, Over.
Okay.
Good night, Jason.
See you.
Anwar, we don't have that many super chats, so we can kind of start to wrap this thing up a little bit. It's late.
Yes, you've been going forever. You've been going forever.
It's late.
Yes.
I have been going for like 6 hours. What's the dichotomy of this game? This game will be remembered in two parts.
Mm-hmm.
First 58 minutes of the game, Washington was just better than Texas. They played better than Texas. And there's a world out there where they're winning by double digits and Texas hasn't played well. And it just, that's the story of the game. Washington was better than Texas. You had the fumbles. You had Quinn not playing his best. Defensively, they didn't play good. And then a weird thing happens in the last 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. The Dylan Johnson injury completely changes the scope of everything that happens afterwards. And we talked before you arrived, we talked about like, look, what the hell is DeBoer doing from a play calling standpoint? If he just gets in victory formation and takes 3 knees, Texas gets the ball back with about 10 seconds to go.
Correct.
And, it's still the same score to end the game, but Texas doesn't get 4 attempts from the 12 and 13 yard line to win it. So there's 2 stories. And I think the thing that everybody's going to ultimately remember is that Texas had 4 throws from the 12 and the 13 yard line to win the game. And I don't know how much focus will be on Washington just kind of kicked their ass for 58 minutes. It almost didn't matter. Very strange that we're left in a position where I think the main talking point is the end and not 95% of what happened.
Yeah, it's that it'll be the thing you cling to, right? It'll be the thing that you say to yourself, almost could have, it could have been. And I think that's the thing that, Sarkisian mentioned, and that's the thing we're probably going to hear all throughout the offseason. He's going to talk about the resiliency of the team and how they were able to fight back and all these kind of things. And, you'll tell yourself, like, you were one play away, if Quinn just puts that ball, in a place where, AD has his guy beat, at that moment. At least I won't say beat, but he's in front of the receiver. If Quinn puts that ball in a different direction, you can tell yourself, man, you win this ball game. And so yeah, it will be about that, and it won't be as much about like you said, the fumbles, the penalties that were there, and play calling, little things like that effect really. To a certain degree, and then I get he was probably a little jitterish about wanting to run the ball more, but hell, when they ran the ball, they were pretty effective running the ball, but he just was not something that they necessarily were willing to do consistently. I mean, CJ Baxter rushes the ball 9 times. Jaden Blue rushes the ball 9 times. When it's all said and done.
They missed Jonathan Brooks tonight in a big
way. They did. But what's crazy, though, is CJ still averaged 7 yards a carry catch, and Jaden Blue was at 6.6. So it wasn't like Washington was stopping that run. It was just a thing that he was just not going to be as dedicated to for whatever reasons. But when they ran the ball, they were effective. But I'm sure when you're running the ball and you feel like you're effective and the guy coughs up the ball, it's kind of hard to say, like, let's just keep going back to that, especially when both guys do that, right? So, but no, Catch, you know how this goes. people will reload. People will forget about all the other things that happened. There'll be a ribbon and bow that's kind of placed on this, and there'll be a really, a nice one and a nice feel good. In the moment, it sucks, but I think, people will. The only people who are not going to regroup, Catch, are the people who bought tickets to the national championship game for $1,000. Like, those are the only people that are not going to regroup. Outside of that, I think everyone else will be high on the horse soon enough.
Few more super chats and we'll get the hell on out of here because it is after 1 a.m. Nick says for $5, I just feel like we don't have enough playmakers in the secondary. There needs to be more experience and talent on that side of the ball.
I mean, Ryan Watts is how long has he been playing?
Well, Ryan Watts tonight was kind of exposed. He didn't. Neither of the corners, Terrence Brooks or Ryan Watts, played well tonight, but they're going up against an elite wide receiver unit with an elite quarterback, and they were on their A game, and Texas wasn't. And you're going to look bad when the pass rush isn't getting home. The quarterback's on fire. You mentioned it, white hot, and he's throwing the ball to really good guys that are going to play at the next level. And yeah, they do need more playmakers, but it's one piece of the puzzle. I think, boy, when we do turn the page to next year, it's a lot leaving. I mean, and they lost a lot last year, so it's not that they haven't proven that they can't replace guys. A lot of guys are leaving, and a lot of young guys are going to have to step up, and the secondary is going to be one of those places. I think Malik Muhammad's going to be a starter next year. Derek Williams will be a sophomore. Mm-hmm. Who else fills some of the voids? Terrence Brooks got to get better. A lot of work to be done. And they're a play away from a national championship game. It's the dichotomy of we got to get a lot better, but we were so close. It's one of the things I think Texas fans will have a hard time wrestling with in their brain before they go to bed tonight.
Catch, sometimes you just got to give respect where respect is due. Michael Penix is a badass quarterback. That guy is that's one of the best performances that we've seen in a long time. That's a first round pick, right? That's what that looks like. That's the thing that that's it. That's the mold of what that is. So yes, you can definitely say certain things about the secondary, but also understand that you're playing against a bad guy who probably could have had a huge argument for the damn Heisman. That's just
and that was the best game I think he's played all season long. It's not like he has not played that well all season long, but tonight he did. And that ball that he throws that split the Texas safeties, who I guess I can't remember who caught the touchdown.
You talk about in the end zone, yeah.
And, sometimes big time players make big time plays.
That was a hell of a throw.
He did that tonight. They threw the ball effectively down the field, like tip of the cap to Michael Penix. It almost feels like it would have been unfair to Michael Penix had Texas stolen victory from the jaws of defeat. If you're Michael Penix, you're like, wait, what? What is happening? Yes. I won this game. This game was over until it wasn't, and then Texas just couldn't cash it in. 2 more super chats. And we'll wrap it up. Luke says, Penix reminds me of C.J. Stroud with the accuracy he did tonight. I mean, that's what it looks like when the Heisman runner-up gets on a heater.
You remember that what was it, that NBA Jam stands when they started to say he's heating up and then
he's it goes on fire. Yes.
And that's what he was, man. That dude was on fire. And sometimes you just gotta give people props, man. You get to the stage, that's what it looks like. Like you said, that's exactly what it looks like. And dude got hot, and dude came out on fire. And dude, even one of his incompletions that there was a pass interference on, he threw it like 80 yards. He threw it from his 20 to like the other 20. And the guy had to slow up for it, but it's like, well, he can't throw a freaking 100 yards, so I can't blame Penix for that, but he still threw it 80 yards in the air. Like, dude's good. That's sometimes you got to say, man, sometimes people are just better than you.
You're having a bad night. That was probably the best play that anybody in the Texas secondary made all night was Terrence Brooks getting a PI instead of giving up like a 60-yard catch. Yes. It was like, way to go. That was all right. I mean, look, the thing is, we all knew Penix was capable of that. The issue is we thought Texas would be able to match them offensively with their own firepower. And in reality, they're not. Washington's offense is better than Texas's offense.
Yeah.
And it sucks to have to admit it.
Yeah.
It sucks to say it out loud.
Yeah.
But Penix is better than yours. And those receivers are better than the Texas receivers. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that Ewers sucks. It doesn't mean the receivers aren't any good. It just means they're not as good as those other guys. And tonight, that was largely the difference in the ball game, with all due respect to the fact that it came down to the last 15 seconds. One last super chat, and then we'll be all caught up. Barb says, did you witness the best, cleanest offensive line? Not one hold, any bad ball spots or non-flags from your advantage point, asking for a lot of friends.
We're doing the referee thing. Is this where we're at?
I had one issue with the refs tonight. Just one tonight, Anwar.
Okay.
And I did think it kind of mattered, but it might not have mattered anyway. First of all, kudos to the Washington offensive line. They were better than the Texas defensive line tonight. They won the battle. However, if you're asking me, are there any non-flags that I had an issue with tonight? Late in the game, it's 1st and 10, and Washington's got the ball at the 20. Texas forces an incompletion. No, I'm sorry. It's a swing pass, and Texas creates a negative 1-yard play out of it. Mm-hmm. One of the Texas DBs, I can't remember who it was, gets blocked in the back. They throw the flag. Now, it was either a block in the back, a blatant one, or it was a late hit. And what that would have done, if it was a block in the back, it would have made it 1st and 20 from about the 10-yard line. And this is the drive where they ultimately get a field goal to make it a 9-point game. What it should have been was a late hit, which would have made it 2nd and 26 from the 9-yard line. And down by 6, that might have been the thing that could have gotten Washington off the field. Although, as good as Penix was, maybe that's just 2 completions and it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But if you're asking me, was there one bad call that you and your friends want us to talk about? I thought it was kind of bullshit that they threw the flag, saw either the block in the back or the late hit. And Anwar, I don't know if you saw it on television. It was bad. It was a blatant hit in the back that was, again, either a block in the back or just a late hit after the play was over. They threw the flag, and then they picked it up, and they didn't explain it at all. They just, and then it went on, and Washington ends up scoring points on that drive. But the officials didn't decide the game tonight. And they certainly didn't decide the battle between the Washington O-line and the Texas D-line. That's not what happened. So,
no.
Barbs, I wish I could say, oh, man, this game, the Big 12 officials, it's just not what happened. Washington, for 58 minutes, was better in this game than Texas was, and at times by really significant margins. It's wild that it ends up being a 1-score game and that an injury to Dylan Johnson allows Texas to get the ball back, and what happens. But I didn't have an issue with the officials.
I didn't have one either. I mean, I didn't see anything, too egregious where I think it's something that I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe. We've seen bad officiating, Catch, and we've talked about it before. I didn't feel like it was. I feel like when Barbs, when you look at it, the things that are going to be the things that are going to have to stand out is going to be the errors that Texas committed. The unforced errors are going to be the things that you're going to have to really think about. Some of the bad throws that occurred, drops, just decision making about certain things. Catch. I mean, I know it's such a minor thing, but I'm still kind of flabbergasted at this moment that Keelan Robinson was in there with a cast trying to returning kickoffs.
Like, trying to pick the ball up with one hand, the other hand.
I mean, and it's a little thing, but in a game of margins where you could have maybe, you could get field position because your guy maybe gets down to the 30 or the 40 or flips the field or whatever it is. You had a guy with a cast on. Come on, like that. You know what I'm saying, Barbs? Like there's going to be I think there's a lot of other little things you can point to. Not chewing on you, not making fun of you. It's all respectful, so you know that. But there's way more meat left on the bone if you want to nitpick some stuff.
Texas had its version of the Mark Sanchez butt fumble tonight. I mean, they're going in for points. And Jaden Blue fumbled the ball off Gunnar Helm's ass. I mean, officials didn't do that. And I think onward, you said it. And really, this can even be my final thought as we start to wrap up.
Okay.
It's always a game of fine margins. Ask Alabama. They're up 20-13, a couple of minutes to go in the game. The inability to not get a stop here. The inability to not be able to pick up a first down there, it's what costs you games. In Texas tonight, on a night where they get stopped 12 yards away from a national championship game, I thought they were out-coached. I thought they were out-quarterbacked. Their running backs made the two big turnovers. The receivers didn't play well. The offensive line got pushed around from a pass rush standpoint. The defensive line couldn't make plays. The linebackers kind of no-showed from a playmaking standpoint. The secondary was terrible. The special teams was not making positive plays on kickoff returns. There was like every box. It felt like Washington had the edge in.
Yeah.
And in the end, they won by 6. And nearly lost the game. And it is a constant reminder of when you lose, there's almost always one or two things that you look back on and go, if those two things don't happen, if that one thing doesn't happen, the whole thing flips around. Texas had about 20 of those tonight.
Yeah.
If Xavier Worthy has a game tonight, if Xavier Worthy catches 7 passes for 80 yards, Texas probably wins tonight. If they're able to get the ball to Adonai Mitchell, and he had 0 catches in the first half. He and Worthy combined for 1 catch for 7 yards in the first half. Like, it's the little things that get you. It's all of the penalties.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And Texas didn't deserve to win tonight. And yet they almost did. And I think you got to have a healthy amount of respect for what Washington did. You have to have a healthy amount of respect for the season that Texas just had. It was a great year.
Yes.
Still a great year. It ends in incredibly painful fashion. But you know what? Man, it happens that way for every team but one.
True.
That's the sport.
So true.
Two of these teams that won today, won next week, we'll ask, like, why did it even matter? We got to the championship game. That's the name of the game. And Texas didn't make enough plays tonight to win. And look, onward, I would love to do a show where even in a loss, we could tell you differently. That Texas got a raw deal. Oh, Texas had some bad luck. Texas actually ended up getting some luck. Not all the luck, but
some.
They had a chance to win, and it was some luck involved in that. And in the end, the right team won the game tonight. It is. And now if you're Texas, you got to regroup. It's a whole new batch of players in a lot of respects. You pick up your pants, you zip them up, you button them up, you put the belt on, and you go back to work. And Texas knows they weren't good enough tonight. Whether you look at it from the totality of the entire performance, or you find yourself stuck on those final 12, 13 yards, whether you think it was a wide margin or a 12-yard margin, Texas wasn't good enough tonight. And And Washington wasn't good enough a year ago, and neither was Michigan. And they come back and they're in a national championship game this year. Sometimes you have to have one of these moments. And Texas has had it. And the guys that return, it'll eat them up, trust me, for a long time. And it may be, we may look back in 12 months as this loss is the thing that helped get them over the hump. But there's still a hump that has to be cleared. And Texas wasn't there tonight. And that's, to me, the biggest takeaway there is just short. And just short's not terrible, but it's still just short, Anwar.
Yeah, and Catch, I concur with everything. Washington was just a better team, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that when you're in the Final Four. To your point, there's only going to be one team that says it, and that's it, and everybody else is going to say it. And so this will be one of those things you look at, and you have to say to yourself, okay, regardless, you got there. Texas made their first playoff appearance, and then to me, Catch, now this thing's just about building. It's this can't be a TCU kind of season where, wow, what a great season, and then you just kind of go back into the abyss, right? Especially next year when things get harder. Steve Sarkisian talked about before the game, hey, appreciating this moment because each season is different. And to your point, hey, they're going to lose guys. They're going to lose guys who decide that they want to go to the draft, or and there's that possibility is going to be out there. They're going to have to reload, and they may have some talent for sure, but they're also going to be going into an SEC. So this will be one of those things that I think the key is going in, making sure this is sustainable. This is just back to the norm, Catch, of the days that you told me about, the 10-win seasons, and just that, let that be the Michigans and the Alabamas and the Georgias, consistent year in and year out, but not just wow. And then now we're looking at 8 wins and 9 wins and trying to talk about making all excuses why things can't be. So, it was overall for me, Catch, my final thought on it was, as disappointing as it was, it still was a great season. I think getting to the playoffs was a great season. So I know you and I have had debates over good, what's good, or just.
No,
I
think it's a great season.
Yeah, I think it's a great season. I think time will heal these wounds. Sucks tonight, but for where Texas was 2 years. That's the thing. Remember, 2 years ago. Catch, you and I ain't even doing a show in January, right? There is no postseason for this program. So to be here a few years later, I think says a lot about the growth and the progress. So you just got to hope they maintain it.
Guys, it has been a great season. We thank Adam Loewy for always being the sponsor of the Postgame show. He's always there, and he's always there for you. He's always there for us. But if you need a personal injury lawyer, if someone does something to hurt you and you need to sue them because you need to get paid, that's what he does. And the reason why he's able to be the sponsor of the Postgame show for a decade, because he wins a bunch of cases. He wins people a bunch of money. And he's got money to spend on advertising because he's making so much money. Let him make you that money. But we love Adam Loewy. He's good people. He's been good to us. And this concludes the end of the year. Look, we'll be back tomorrow.
Hey, Catch, before you go, JD said he lost his car betting on this game. Just a few things ago, JD goes, I lost my car because of this game. Stay away from gambling, boys. That's depressing if this is true. Just want to throw that out there. Yeah, I got it. Right here, Catch. I put it on the screen.
I don't know how to respond to that, JD, other than never get your kids. The lesson to be learned here: don't ever gamble with stuff you can't afford to lose. Facts. Ottawa and I love Prize Picks, and I played it tonight. Won some, lost some. But it wasn't my last $200.
Correct.
It sucks that I lost some, but what I lost isn't the difference between like a major thing in my life. So JD, I hope that's metaphorical. If you legitimately played for the keys of your car, like in a poker game, you just tossed your keys on the table. Good luck. Life comes at you fast.
I just don't know. Okay, I'm sorry. I know we're closing. I just couldn't. It's just I saw it in that out of a glance catch, and that one. I was like, wow, because JD's a friend of all our shows, so that just kind of stuck out to me. I'm just gonna say that.
JD, I'm gonna make you go into a little bit more detail before the week is over, but it's 1:30. Clearly, you don't need to be talking with us about this right now. You need to figure out a way to keep your car if you can. JD says metaphorical would be great.
Oh my god!
The more he replies, Anwar, the more I think he's serious.
He sounds serious. And I'm just hoping he's trolling.
Thing is, what were you, JD? Here's what I need to know. Sandman, don't hit him with the no more car insurance payments. I'm sorry, JD. Come on, Sandman. JD, what was the bet? What would you have won?
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking,
yes.
Was it a car versus car?
I mean, it's still such an odd bet. Like, who bets cars?
Poker games. That happens in like a card game where I've seen people be like, I got a checkbook at the table. Well, it's like, I'll put you all in. You can't put me car for car, my guy. Okay.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well,
that is living life to the fullest, I think. Maybe too full. JD, hang in there.
Hey, JD. I know this is an Adam Lowe show, but we have a Covert Ford might be the time to talk about Covert Ford if you're looking for a new vehicle. Catch has got the hook.
And says you don't have to worry about car insurance. No, now use Mojo to see if you can save money on car insurance. Never mind. Hey guys,
okay.
An obscure way to end the show, but maybe it was needed. Guys, Anwar is going to be coming back to the ATX tomorrow. Chad and I, in 10 and a half hours, we'll be back. House divided. We'll try to figure out the day after what all this means. But for tonight, it's bedtime. And it's time for Anwar to go back to the hotel. I got to finish a column on Orangebloods, and then I can go to sleep. Thank God you don't have a show tomorrow, Anwar, because I don't want to be on it. Like, whenever I go to sleep, I'd like to try to get a full 6 hours. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. But for myself, Anwar, Jason, Blake, the super producer, all of you in the Specs chat, thank you for a wonderful season. Thank you for a wonderful night. Washington 37, Texas 31. The beat and the show goes on. It just won't be next Monday night in Houston for a national championship. Until tomorrow and through the weeks and months to come as we get ready for Texas's first season in the SEC. You guys have a good night, a good new year. We'll do it again